Hello everyone, this is our second video on ATM-CNS concept, and the focus is going to be on the so-called ATM service, right? So the ATM service, we can go here down, down, can be decomposed into the airspace management service, the air traffic flow management, also referred to as air traffic flow and capacity management, right? Air traffic flow management, and the air traffic services, which includes the air traffic control. It's probably more familiar for you. It includes also the flying information service and the alert service. Okay, so let's take a look at these three guys. So the idea is that if we think on a single flight, right? We see as a one flight as a pivotal element. We need to go through 13 procedures, right? The ultimate goal of all these services is to ensure safety. So these three sub-elements of the air traffic management can be understood as three safety nets that work, right? That work at different time horizons, right? If this is the time of departure, right? We might go back, say, few months or few weeks before time of departure, and we might wanna, and indeed we do that, right? We ask for a slot because we wanna serve a regular flight between Madrid and I don't know and Berlin every weekday at 9 a.m. So we need to have that slot, and then we would do something that is called repetitive flight plan, right? We would check at the available structure of the airspace, right? Those routes that are available, those flight levels that are available, and I would do my flight plan. So this, if we try to do an analogy with road transportation, the airspace management is like the infrastructure, the roads, right? The roads. I cannot fly whatever route. I need to follow pre-established routes and pre-established flight levels, and I cannot go through specific volumes of airspace that might not be available for me, uh, and also the airspace is subdivided into smaller and smaller volumes of airspace due to the sovereignty of the countries over their airspaces, and this has to do with national security because the military might be flying. Also, because we need to subdivide it into volumes near the airport, volumes in the approximation area, volumes for en route, and so on and so forth. Right. So this is one thing. Then, and that's the first safety layer, right? If we somehow organize traffic and enforce traffic to fly through 13 routes, we are already avoiding everyone to do whatever they want to, and eventually this is the first safety net. Second, the so-called air traffic flow management, right? This is, if we continue with our analogy, would be similar to the traffic lights, right, in the road transportation. There is one difference. In the road transportation, we have a crossing point, right? Crossing point, and the only way of of making cars not to collide one against each other is to eventually open the flow in one direction and close it in the other, and the other way around. This, unfortunately, is not doable in aviation because aircraft cannot stop in the air. So what we do is basically run something called air traffic flow management, which has to do with analyzing. We were mentioning that our airspace is somehow subdivided in volumes, right? And these are called ATC sectors. This is the volume of airspace in which the air traffic controlling is executing its duties, right? And this sector has a capacity, which is the maximum number of aircraft a controller can safely handle per unit of time. Maybe in 10 minutes, 15 minutes, 1 hour. Different definitions for that. But it has a capacity, right? Now, we have, for instance, imagine we have here one flight, here another flight, here another flight, right? And they are providing you, in these procedures, you need to send flight plans to one authority that is called the network manager in Europe, right? Which is Eurocontrol. All flights in Europe must be sent to the network manager. And the flights come with the route, the sequence of waypoints. So waypoint A, B, C, D for this one, right? A, B, C, D. It also comes with speeds, and the speeds are typically constant, so you can kind of, with a basic simulation, you can come up with space, time, with the velocity. You have this other one, say this is the blue one, right? And this is entering this point, which might be A prima, then B prima, C prima, and there is another one, which might be yellow here, that is entering here, say A prima prima, B prima prima, C prima prima, D prima. And you know the times at which you expect all these flights to evolve. This is a simulation. Well, you're gonna you have the capacity on the one hand, right here, but you can also calculate at some point the demand. How many? Sorry. This is the demand. How many aircraft are you expecting for unity of time in that particular sector? And by somehow balancing capacity and demand, you might have an assessment of safety in some sense, right? If the expected demand is exceeding the available capacity, we might have problems because we are expecting more traffic, more aircraft per unit of time in that particular volume, more than the controller can safely handle, right? So we might need to do something. And what we do is typically regulate traffic, assign a delay, reroute it, modify it somehow to avoid this hotspot, okay? If demand is greater than capacity in a given ATC sector, this is a hotspot that needs somehow to be handled. And this is a process that goes in this timeline, right? From months to almost 1 hour. This is 2 to 1 hour before the time of departure. Right. I am not going to go in details now, but you should know that this is an iterative process that goes from months before departure, the time of departure, to the 1 hour before. And we might get a delay at the gate, as you might have experienced yourselves. Our last element is the air traffic services. These apply already in flight. flight or right before flying, but in any case around the time of departure, right? We might be at the gate, filling in or doing the last briefing, doing the pre-flight checks, pre-takeoff, and we might be already in touch with the controllers. We might be in taxiing, and might be in touch with the controllers. And these guys are kind of instructing us, advising us what to do in case of detecting a potential conflict. Plus, eventually informing us of there is wind shear, because I have experience, a previous pilot experiencing wind shear. This might go through the flight information service, and the alert service has to do with some emergency situation that might pop up. So there are protocols established to handle it. Imagine we have an aircraft that is running out of fuel for any reason and needs to just land. And we might have protocols to pop up an emergency, divert all the aircraft to other destinations, and try to also fire medical services and fire services might be established at the runway, and so on and so forth. Okay. So these are the three services, and they act as three safety nets, because we have first, traffic is to be structured laterally and vertically. Then we have flow mechanisms as a second safety layer to eventually avoid hotspots, and then we have the more tactical layer, which is the controller, which is supervising and monitoring what's going on, and eventually stepping in to avoid a potential conflict. Right? A conflict is a loss of separation minimum, around 5 nautical miles and 1,000 feet. There are other. The last safety net is the TCAS, which is an automatic system that might come into force if all these systems or all these safety nets fail to avoid a conflict situation. But we will see this in future lectures. So now, getting back to our presentation, and real quick, we have here the what I was mentioning, right? These three safety layers that somehow play their roles at different time frames. We have the airspace management, which again, we will have a devoted session to this. I don't want to go into details, but the primary objective is to maximize the utilization of available airspace while maintaining safety, right? And we have different navigation charts. Here we have the maps, the different waypoints, the different flight levels, different volumes of airspace near the aerodrome, flight information regions, upper information regions, the airspace is classified, volumes of control. All these concepts will be developed in a future lesson. And then we have the air traffic flow management, right? Here is the way we measure the demand, right? How many aircraft, say from here we have 38. This might be some sustainable workload, and this is the peak, right? 47. So they can handle 47 aircraft per unit of time. This might be every 10 minutes or 15 minutes, it depends. In this case is hourly, right? So they can handle around 47 aircraft per hour in the peak moment. But if it's maintained over the whole hour, they can only handle 38 due to workload in duty, right? So this is something that we will see. How do we estimate demand? How do we estimate capacity, right? The demand, the green guys, would be the expected aircraft in that particular volume of airspace, which is labeled with this indicator here, in a particular day. Right, and we do this balance, demand and capacity, and the network manager, Eurocontrol in Europe, is the one to take those actions, and this might lead in for instance, you have here that like between 12 and 1 p.m. We have an important exceed of demand or expected demand, so for sure they're going to have to take some measures, delay at the gate, right? Or eventually modify trajectory to go through other areas or other flight levels. And again, we will devote a single lesson to this. Uh, Last but not least, we have the ATS services. Right? Again, here we have, sorry, here we have one thing that the thing is that we plan and plan and plan and prevent things to happen, but in the end, the realization, real life, is never as expected. We have uncertainties, and that's why we need to have a human in the loop, pilot on the one hand, but also controllers. Uh, Controllers, they work in different units, in the tower control, but also in the area control centers. And the controllers are the ones to provide the flight information, the air system, or the traffic control. Here on the down left figure, we have two aircraft, right, in the horizontal plane, and we have this safety volume, in this case 5 nautical miles, and it is said that a conflict or a loss of separation occurs when these 5 nautical miles are violated. So if a controller is monitoring screen and by extrapolating current position and current velocity and current heading, there is the controller is detecting that a conflict is to occur in the next 2, 3, 4, 5, 10 minutes. Some advisory might be instructed. It can be a change in heading. This is called vectoring. It can be a change in velocity. It can also be a change in flight level. But again, we will have another session devoted to this. So that's all on my side for this video. Thanks very much for your time.